Have you ever felt that sudden wave of confusion while listening to a conversation in English? You are nodding, smiling, understanding every word, and then suddenly it feels like the ground has shifted beneath your feet. The people speaking are talking about something completely different, and you didn't see it coming. You missed the turn. It is a frustrating feeling, isn't it? You might think your listening skills are not good enough, or that people speak too fast. But often, the real problem is not the speed of the speech. The real problem is that you are missing the signals, the tiny road signs that tell you we are changing direction. Welcome to English in Fluency. I am your host, Alex, and today we are going to fix that. We are going to master the art of recognizing topic changes so you can stay oriented, keep up with the flow, and finally understand more of what you hear. Today is going to be different. We are not just going to listen to a dialogue, we are going to dissect it. We are going to slow down time and look at the exact moments where one topic ends and another begins. Think of it like driving a car. When you drive, you look for turn signals. A blinking light tells you the car in front of you is about to turn. Conversation has blinkers too. We call them discourse markers or transition phrases. If you don't see the blinker, you crash into the conversation, getting lost and confused. By the end of this session, you will see those blinkers instantly. You will stay oriented, meaning you will always know where the conversation is going. So, get comfortable, maybe grab a notebook, and let's dive into the world of natural English flow. To begin, I want to introduce you to two friends, Mark and Sarah. They are meeting at a local cafe on a Saturday afternoon. They haven't seen each other in a few weeks, so they have a lot to catch up on. This is a very common situation. Friends meet, they talk about one thing, and then they jump to another. Listen to their conversation. Don't worry about understanding every single word right now. Just try to follow the general flow. Pay attention to when the subject changes. Where does the conversation take a turn? Let's listen. Mark sat down in the wooden chair with a sigh, the noise of the coffee shop bubbling around him. He looked at Sarah and smiled, though his eyes looked a little tired. "I am so glad we could finally meet," he said, picking up the menu. "I feel like I haven't stopped moving for 2 weeks. The project at work has been absolutely crazy. We are trying to launch the new software by next Friday, and every time we fix one bug, 3 more appear. I stayed at the office until 10 o'clock last night, just staring at code." Sarah nodded sympathetically, taking a sip of her latte. "That sounds exhausting, Mark. I don't know how you do it. You need to make sure you are resting enough. Remember what happened last year when you burned out?" Mark waved his hand dismissively, but his smile faded slightly. I know, but this is different. It's a big opportunity. Anyway, how have you been? You look great, by the way. Did you do something different with your hair? Did you hear it? Did you hear the moment the conversation shifted?" For the first part, Mark was talking about his work. He was tired, stressed, and focused on his project. He talked about bugs, code, and staying late. The topic was firmly planted in work stress. Sarah responded by talking about his health and burnout. That was still related to his work situation. But then, something happened. Mark said a very specific phrase. He said, "Anyway." And then he asked, "How have you been? You look great, by the way." In that split second, the conversation moved from Mark's work stress to Sarah's appearance and her life. Anyway is one of the most common blinkers in English. It acts like a bridge. It signals that the speaker is finished with the current topic, or perhaps they want to move away from a negative topic, and they are ready to introduce something new. When you hear, anyway, your brain should perk up. It tells you, get ready, we are changing lanes. Let's continue with their conversation to see how they navigate through different subjects. Sarah touched her hair self-consciously and smiled. Oh, thanks. Yes, actually, I went to that new salon on Main Street last week. You know, the one that opened next to the bakery? It was quite an experience. The stylist was very chatty. He told me all about his life story while cutting my hair. He's actually from a small town near the coast, a place I've never heard of, but he said the surfing there is fantastic. He's been surfing since he was 5 years old. Mark leaned forward, his interest piqued. Speaking of surfing, did you hear about the competition next month? The big international one that's supposed to happen at the North Beach? I saw an article about it this morning. They are expecting huge waves because of the storm season. Sarah's eyes widened. No, I hadn't heard. That sounds exciting, though. I love watching those events. It must be incredible to see them ride such big waves. But honestly, I prefer swimming to surfing. I've been going to the pool every morning lately. It's so peaceful. Let's pause right there. We just witnessed a rapid-fire series of topic changes, and they happened so naturally that you might have missed the connecting threads. First, Sarah was talking about the hair salon and the chatty stylist. That was the main topic. Then, she mentioned the stylist's background and his love for surfing. Mark heard the word surfing and used a very powerful transition phrase. He said, speaking of surfing, this is a classic linking phrase. It takes a keyword from the current topic, in this case surfing, and uses it as a springboard to jump to a related but different topic, the surfing competition. When you hear speaking of something, you know the speaker is pivoting. They are taking a piece of information and turning it into a new direction. It is a smooth transition because the two topics are linked by a keyword. Mark didn't just interrupt her to talk about sports. He used her mention of surfing to make the change logical. But then, Sarah made another shift. She talked about the competition, and then she said, but honestly, I prefer swimming. The word but here serves as a pivot. It signals a contrast. She acknowledges the topic of surfing, but then steers the ship toward her own preference, swimming. Staying oriented here requires you to catch these small words. Anyway, speaking of, but. These are the guardians of the conversation structure. If you miss them, you might think they are still talking about hair when they are actually talking about a sports competition. Now, for those of you following along and trying to improve your B1 level listening, let's break this down into a practical strategy. When you listen, don't try to catch every noun and verb. It is exhausting and unnecessary. Instead, listen for the road signs. Listen for the structure words. When you hear, by the way, you know a new, usually unrelated topic is coming. When you hear, that reminds me, you know a memory or a story is incoming. When you hear so, often used at the start of a sentence, it can mean a summary is coming or a change in focus. Let's go back to Mark and Sarah. Let's see if you can predict the change before it happens, or at least catch it the moment it arrives. Mark took a sip of his coffee and looked out the window at the busy street. Swimmin' every morning. That's dedication. he said. I wish I had that kind of energy. Lately, I've just been feeling so sluggish. Maybe I need to change my diet. I've been eating way too much takeout. Just yesterday, I ordered pizza for the third time this week. It's just so easy when I'm working late. Sarah laughed softly. I get it. Pizza is a weakness for me too. But you know, since you mentioned diet, I actually started this new plant-based recipe blog. I've been cooking a lot more at home. It saves money, and I feel so much better. I made this incredible lasagna last night using zucchini instead of pasta. It was surprisingly good. Mark looked surprised. A blog? That's news to me. When did you start that? Here we saw a transition that happened organically through association. Mark was talking about his health and eating too much takeout. He mentioned diet. Sarah picked up on that keyword. She said, "Since you mentioned diet." This is a variation of "speaking of." She used his topic as a bridge to introduce her new hobby, the recipe blog. Notice how the conversation moved from Mark's bad eating habits to Sarah's new project. The thread was diet, but the destination was the blog. If you weren't paying attention to the connecting phrase, "since you mentioned diet," you might have been confused. Why is she talking about a blog? We were talking about pizza. But because of that transition phrase, the logic holds together. This is the key to staying oriented. You must see the thread connecting the topics. Let's move on to a different scenario to practice this skill with different vocabulary and different speakers. We are going to meet two colleagues, David and Emily. They are in a break room at their office. This context is important because workplace conversations often have very specific types of topic changes. They are often more functional. People change topics to get information or to move on to work tasks. Let's listen to how David and Emily manage their conversation. David was stirring sugar into his tea, the spoon clinking rhythmically against the ceramic mug. He looked up as Emily walked in, looking a bit rushed. "Morning, Emily," he said. "You look like you're in a hurry. Everything okay?" Emily sighed and leaned against the counter, opening a bottle of water. "Oh, hi, David. Yes, I'm fine. Just trying to get everything ready for the regional meeting. The boss wants the presentation slides finalized by noon today, and I'm still waiting on the sales data from the London office. It's a bit of a nightmare." David nodded understandingly. "I can imagine. Regional meetings are always stressful. I remember last quarter we had a similar panic, but we got through it. By the way, have you seen the new coffee machine they installed in the hallway? It actually makes decent espresso." Emily looked confused for a second, then shook her head. "No, I haven't even left my desk today. An espresso sounds amazing right now, but I really should get back to my emails. Before I go, did you manage to send me the budget report I asked for?" This dialogue shows a very common workplace dynamic. The conversation started with work stress. Emily was stressed about the meeting. David sympathized. Then, David used a classic workplace transition. "By the way," this phrase usually introduces a topic that is completely off-topic, something random or new. He shifted the conversation from the stressful meeting to the coffee machine. It was a break from the stress. "By the way" is like a side road. It says, "Let's leave the main highway for a second and look at this interesting thing." But notice what happened next. Emily didn't want to stay on that side road. She had work to do. She transitioned back. She said, "But I really should get back to my emails." This is a closing transition. She was politely ending the current topic to return to her previous priority. And then she used one more transition. Before I go. This is a functional transition. It signals the very last thing to be said before the conversation ends or the person leaves. She used it to ask about the budget report. So in just a few lines, we went from stress to coffee, back to work priorities, and finally to a specific task. Staying oriented here meant understanding that "by the way" was a distraction, but "I really should" was a return to reality, and "before I go" was the final wrap-up. To really master this, we need to look at the subtle cues. Sometimes we don't use big phrases. Sometimes the topic change is just a pause and a new question. Let's look at another interaction between two roommates, Liam and Chloe. They are in their apartment on a Sunday evening. This is a more casual, relaxed setting. The flow might be slower, but the changes can be more abrupt because they are comfortable with each other. Liam was sitting on the sofa, scrolling through his phone, while Chloe was folding laundry on the other end of the couch. The TV was on, but the volume was low. "I can't believe it's already Sunday night," Liam said, tossing his phone onto the cushion. "The weekend just flew by. I feel like I just got home from work on Friday." Chloe folded a t-shirt and placed it in a basket. "I know. It's scary how fast time goes. We really need to plan a proper vacation soon. I was looking at flights to Italy yesterday. They have some really good deals for October." Liam looked interested. "Italy? That would be amazing. I've always wanted to go to Rome. We could eat pizza and pasta every day." Chloe laughed. "Exactly. And see the Colosseum, of course. Oh, that reminds me. I need to call the travel agent tomorrow. I almost forgot." But changing the subject completely, "Did you remember to pay the electricity bill? The due date is tomorrow." In this scene, the topic changed gears quickly. They started with the feeling of the weekend ending. Then, Chloe transitioned to the idea of a vacation. This was a smooth move, because it was related to the idea of time and taking a break. They fantasized about Italy for a moment. Then Chloe used a very explicit phrase. "Oh, that reminds me." This phrase is crucial. It signals that a thought has popped into the speaker's head, triggered by something in the conversation, but it might be a bit different, or a specific action item. In this case, it was calling the travel agent. But then, immediately after, she used another phrase. But changing the subject completely. This is the most obvious transition of all. It is a formal announcement. We are stopping topic A, and we are starting topic B. She used it to ask about the electricity bill. Why? Because the bill had nothing to do with Italy. It was a mundane household task. Sometimes, when the new topic is very different or important, we use these clear markers to avoid confusion. We say, "changing the subject," or "on a different note," to prepare the listener. So far, we have looked at several key phrases. Let's recap them before we go further. We have "anyway," often used to return to a previous topic, or to move on from a tangent. We have "speaking of," used to link a keyword to a new but related topic. We have "by the way," used to introduce a random off-topic subject. We have "that reminds me," used for a memory or an action item triggered by the conversation. And finally, we have "changing the subject," used for a complete shift to an unrelated matter. These are your tools. If you can identify these 5 phrases, You will understand the structure of 80% of casual English conversations. Now, I want to challenge you a little bit. I am going to give you a longer, more complex dialogue. This is your practice round. Imagine three friends, Ben, Olivia, and Noah. They are planning a birthday party for their friend, Sophie. In this dialogue, there will be distractions, topic changes, and returns to the main subject. Try to map the conversation in your head. Where are they starting? Where do they drift? Do they come back? Listen for the markers. Ben sat at a large table in the library, spreading out a map of the city. Olivia and Noah pulled up chairs opposite him. "Okay, team," Ben whispered, looking around to make sure they were quiet. "We have exactly 2 weeks until Sophie's birthday. We need to finalize the venue today. I was thinking about that new restaurant by the river, the Blue Anchor. It has a nice private room." Olivia tapped her pen on the table. "The Blue Anchor? I heard the food is good, but isn't it a bit expensive? I mean, we are on a budget. We have about 20 people coming, and if it's too pricey, we might run out of money for the cake." Noah nodded. "I agree with Olivia. We should look at other options. What about the community center? We can bring our own food there. It's much cheaper. Plus, they have a big projector if we want to show a slideshow of Sophie." Ben looked uncertain. "The community center is a bit plain. It doesn't feel very birthday-ish. But you're right about the cost. Anyway, let's put a pin in the venue for a second. We need to talk about the gift. I had an idea. Sophie has been complaining about her old laptop for months. What if we all chip in and buy her a new one?" Let's stop there. The main topic was the venue. They were debating between a restaurant and a community center. It was a debate about cost versus atmosphere. Then Ben used "anyway" to pivot. He said, "Anyway, let's put a pin in the venue for a second." Put a pin in it is an idiom meaning, let's pause this and come back to it later. He used this to switch the topic to the gift. The gift was a completely different logistical challenge. Did you catch the shift? If you missed "anyway" and "let's put a pin in it," you might be confused why they were suddenly talking about laptops. Let's continue. Olivia's eyes lit up. "A laptop? That is a brilliant idea, Ben. It's practical, and she would definitely use it. I think she needs a model that's good for graphic design since she's doing all that freelance work now. I can ask my brother for recommendations. He works in IT." Noah was scrolling on his phone. "Hang on. Speaking of IT, did you guys see that news about the cyber attack on the hospital? It's all over the internet right now. It's crazy how hackers can just shut everything down." Ben looked concerned. "Yeah, I saw that. It's scary. My data was actually leaked in a breach last year. It was such a hassle to change all my passwords." Olivia frowned. "That is scary. But, getting back to the party, do we have a list of people who are definitely coming? We need to know numbers to figure out how much we can spend per person for the gift." We just navigated a tricky turn. They were discussing the gift, a laptop. Noah used the phrase, "speaking of IT." He took the keyword IT from Olivia's sentence about her brother, and he pivoted to a news story about a cyber attack. This is a classic tangent. It had nothing to do with Sophie's birthday. It was a distraction. They spent a moment talking about hackers and passwords. If you lost your orientation here, you might think the birthday planning was over. But then, Olivia stepped in. She used a very important phrase for bringing the conversation back on track. She said, "But, getting back to the party, This is the rescue phrase. It is used to steer the car back onto the main road after a detour. She acknowledged the distraction, but forcefully moved the topic back to the guest list. This is a high-level listening skill. You need to recognize the detour and then recognize the return. Let's practice one more segment of this conversation to see if they stay on track. Noah put his phone down. Right. Yes, the guest list. I have about 12 confirmations on the group chat. I'm waiting to hear from the rest. I think Jamie and Luke might not make it because they are traveling that weekend. Oh, that reminds me. Did I tell you I'm going to Spain next month? I booked the tickets yesterday. Ben laughed. No, you didn't. That's awesome. Where are you going? Noah smiled. Barcelona. I've never been. I'm excited for the architecture. Olivia checked her watch and interrupted gently. Guys, I hate to be the boring one, but I have to leave in 10 minutes. Before we wrap up, can we decide on the cake flavor? Chocolate or vanilla? Ben thought for a moment. Let's do half and half. Sophie likes both. And I'll call the community center tomorrow to check availability. Noah gave a thumbs up. Perfect. I'll start the collection for the laptop. Here, we saw another tangent. Noah transitioned from the guest list to his own travel plans using, oh, that reminds me. This is a personal association. It threatened to derail the planning session. Ben indulged the tangent briefly by asking, where are you going? But Olivia, the timekeeper, used a functional transition to close the conversation. She used, before we wrap up. This signals the final stage. She forced a decision on the cake and the venue. The conversation successfully ended with clear action items. How did you do? Could you follow the flow? It is like a river. It flows straight, then it curves. Sometimes it splits into a small creek, but then it usually flows back into the main stream. Your job as a listener is not to memorize every detail of the creek, but to know that the main river is still there. When you hear "speaking of," expect a curve. When you hear "getting back to," expect the main river. Now, let's shift our focus to emotional transitions. Sometimes, the topic changes not because of a keyword, but because of an emotional shift. This is harder to catch, but very important for understanding the mood of the conversation. Let's meet two friends, Jack and Mia. They are having a serious conversation. Listen to how the topic changes, from light to heavy. Jack was walking alongside Mia in the park. The leaves were crunching under their feet. It's such a beautiful autumn day, Jack said, zipping up his jacket. The colors are amazing this year. I love this time of year. It's perfect for hiking. Mia nodded, but she didn't smile. She kicked a stone along the path. It is nice, she said quietly. Jack stopped walking and looked at her. He sensed something was wrong. Is everything okay, Mia? You've been quiet all afternoon. Mia took a deep breath and looked at the ground. Actually, there is something I need to talk to you about. I didn't want to bring it up, but I might be moving to Chicago for my job. I found out yesterday. This is a powerful transition. They started with small talk, the weather, the leaves, hiking. But Mia was quiet. Jack noticed the silence. The transition here was not a phrase like, by the way. It was an emotional prompt. Jack asked, is everything okay? This question opened the door for a topic change. Mia then used the phrase, actually, there is something I need to talk to you about. This is a heavy, serious transition marker. It signals that the previous topic is over, and a serious, difficult topic is beginning. In B1 listening, catching these emotional shifts is vital. It changes the tone from casual to serious. If you miss this, you might keep thinking they are talking about hiking, and you would miss the entire point of the conversation. The clue here was the word actually combined with the change in tone of voice. Let's look at the opposite, moving from a serious topic to a lighter one. This usually happens when the speakers want to relieve tension. Mia looked on the verge of tears after sharing the news about Chicago. Jack put a hand on her shoulder. "I'm so sorry you have to deal with that," he said. "It's a huge decision. I know how much you love your job, but moving away is scary. We are all going to miss you like crazy." Mia wiped her eyes. "I know. It's just really overwhelming right now. I don't know what to do." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Jack clapped his hands together, trying to sound cheerful. "Look, we don't have to solve this today. Why don't we go get some ice cream? That new place just opened across the street. My treat. You can tell me more about the pros and cons over a giant sundae." Mia smiled weakly. "Ice cream does sound good. Okay, let's go." Here, the transition was initiated by Jack. He used a change in behavior, clapping his hands, and a proposal. "Why don't we?" He shifted the topic from the emotional burden of moving to the simple, comforting topic of ice cream. This is a comfort transition. It is used to move away from pain or awkwardness. The marker here was "look," followed by a suggestion. Look is a very versatile word. In this context, it meant, let's pause the current emotion and try something else. So, we have covered functional transitions, associational transitions, and emotional transitions. To help you practice this in your daily life, I want to give you a mental checklist. When you listen to a podcast, watch a movie, or talk to a friend, I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. Question 1. Where are we now? Identify the current topic. Is it work? Is it family? Is it a complaint? Question 2. Did I hear a signal? Listen for the magic words. Anyway, by the way, speaking of, actually, look. So, question 3. Where are we going? Once you hear the signal, reset your brain. Drop the old topic and look for the new one. Don't hold on to the old information. The conversation has moved on. Let's try a rapid-fire practice session. I will say a sentence, and then I will give you a transition phrase. I want you to imagine what the next sentence might be. This trains your brain to predict the flow. Number 1. Context. 2 friends talking about a movie. Sentence. The special effects were incredible, but the story was a bit confusing. Transition. Speaking of confusing. Possible continuation. Speaking of confusing, did you understand the ending of the game last night? The topic shifts from the movie to the game. Number 2. Context. A husband and wife talking about dinner. Sentence. I really don't feel like cooking tonight. Transition. By the way. Possible continuation. By the way, did you call the repairman about the dishwasher? The topic shifts from dinner to a household chore. Number 3. Context. 2 students talking about an exam. Sentence. I studied for 5 hours straight yesterday. Transition. Anyway. Possible continuation. Anyway, are you ready for the history lecture now? The topic shifts from studying to the next immediate task. This predictive skill is what separates fluent listeners from struggling ones. Fluent listeners don't just passively receive sound. They actively predict what comes next. When you predict correctly, you feel a sense of success. When you predict incorrectly, The transition phrase acts as a correction, steering you back. Now, I want to talk about a specific challenge for B1 learners, the polite interruption. Often, topic changes happen because one person interrupts another. In English, we often use softeners to interrupt. We don't just stop the person. We say, "Sorry to interrupt, but," or "Can I just add something here?" or "I just want to say." These are transitions that happen midstream. Let's listen to a dialogue between two colleagues, Tom and Lisa, who are discussing a project. Tom was on a roll. And then we need to ensure that the marketing team has the banners by Wednesday, because the launch is on Friday. And if we don't have the banners, the whole campaign. Lisa interjected gently. "Sorry to jump in, Tom, but I think the launch is actually on Thursday. I got an email this morning." Tom stopped and checked his notes. "Oh, you're right. Thanks, Lisa. So, as I was saying, the banners need to be ready earlier." Lisa used "sorry" to jump in. This signaled a pause in the flow. She introduced a correction. It was a temporary topic change, a correction. Then Tom used "so, as I was saying." This is the return transition. It signals, "I am going back to my previous point." If you missed Lisa's transition, you might have been confused why Tom was suddenly talking about Thursday. If you missed Tom's return, you might not realize he was continuing his original thought. Let's look at another example of a conversation that goes wrong. Sometimes people change topics too abruptly, and it causes confusion. This is a great listening exercise because it tests your ability to recover when orientation is lost. Imagine two people, Sam and Rachel. Sam: "I am really worried about my dog. He hasn't been eating well lately." Rachel: "I saw a great movie yesterday." Sam: "What? Oh, okay. What movie?" Rachel missed the social cue. She didn't use a transition phrase, she just jumped. In real life, this happens. But as a learner, if you hear this, you should recognize it as a broken transition. It usually implies the listener, Rachel, wasn't listening or is self-centered. However, most of the time, we aim for smooth transitions. We aim for the bridge. Let's build a longer narrative to practice everything we have learned. Imagine a family dinner. The characters are the father, Robert, the mother, Elna, and the teenage son, Max. This environment is rich with topic changes because family dynamics are chaotic. Everyone has a different agenda. The family sat around the dinner table. The smell of roasted chicken filled the room. Robert carved the meat. "This looks delicious, Elena," he said. "You really outdid yourself. It's so nice to have a proper family dinner. With work being so crazy, I feel like I haven't seen you guys in days." Elena smiled as she passed the potatoes. "Thank you. I thought we needed it. And yes, you have been busy. How is the merger going? You mentioned it last week." Robert sighed, putting down his knife and fork. "It's progressing, slowly. The lawyers are arguing over every little detail. It's exhausting. I spent 3 hours on a conference call today just listening to them debate the fine print. Honestly, I just want to switch off my brain." Max, who had been texting under the table, looked up. "Speaking of switching off, can I go to Tom's house after dinner? We're going to play video games. He just got the new FIFA game." Did you follow that? Robert was talking about work stress and his desire to relax. Max, the son, used "speaking of switching off." He took his father's phrase, "switch off my brain," and twisted it to mean switch off from family duties to play video games. It was a clever, slightly manipulative transition. He used his father's own words to justify his request. This happens often in family conversations. The transition was technically correct, speaking of, but the intent was to hijack the conversation for his own benefit. Elena shook her head before Robert could answer. Max, we are in the middle of dinner, and you haven't touched your vegetables. By the way, did you finish your history essay? The one you were complaining about yesterday? Max groaned. Mom, not now. Yes, I finished it. Anyway, about Tom's house? Robert laughed. Nice try, Max. Finish your broccoli first. Actually, I wanted to ask you both something. I was thinking we could go to the lake this weekend. The weather is supposed to be nice. What do you think? Elena used, by the way, to pivot from Max's bad manners to his schoolwork. It was a disciplined transition. Max tried to use anyway to steer the ship back to his video game request. Robert then used actually to override both of them and introduce a family plan. Actually is a strong transition here. It overrides the previous topic and introduces a new, perhaps more important one. It is like a but that creates a completely new direction. So in this short dinner scene, we had 1. Compliments on food. 2. Shift to work stress. 3. Speaking of switching off leads to shift to video games. 4. By the way, leads to shift to schoolwork. 5. Anyway, leads to attempt to return to video games. 6. Actually, leads to shift to weekend plans. That is 6 topics in a very short time. If you can navigate this, you are ready for B1 level conversations and beyond. Now, I want to focus on the phrase so. This is one of the smallest words in English, but it does the heaviest lifting in conversation. So can mean many things. It can be a summary. It can be a transition. It can be a starter. Let's listen to a dialogue between 2 neighbors, Harry and Grace, over the fence. Harry was watering his garden. Grace walked out onto her porch. Hi, Harry, she said. Hi, Grace, Harry replied. The tomatoes are looking good this year. Grace nodded. They are. I've been watering them every morning. The secret is the fertilizer I bought. Harry paused. So, I heard you are having a garage sale this weekend. Grace sighed. News travels fast. Yes, we are clearing out the attic. It's a mess up there. I found boxes of stuff from 10 years ago. Here, Harry used so to initiate a new topic. He didn't say, speaking of tomatoes. He completely changed the subject. So here acts as a fresh start. It's a signal that says, here is a new thought. It is very common at the beginning of a sentence when shifting topics. It is less abrupt than, by the way. By the way often feels like an add-on, an extra thought. So feels like a deliberate move to a new subject. Let's look at another use of so. Later in the conversation, Harry and Grace are discussing the garage sale. Harry, I have some old tools I might donate if you have space. Grace, sure, bring them over. The more the merrier. Harry, I'll bring them by tomorrow. Grace, great. So, are you watching the game tonight? Here, so is used to close the previous topic, the tools, and open a new one, the game. It functions like anyway. It bridges the gap. When you hear so at the start of a sentence, your brain should instinctively ask, is this a summary? Is this a result? Or is this a new topic? Context is key. In this case, there was no logical connection between tools and the game, so it must be a new topic transition. Now, let's have a practice simulation. This is where you actively participate. I am going to tell a short story. Inside the story, I will pause. At the pause, I will give you two options for a transition phrase. You have to choose the one that best fits the direction I describe. Ready? Story. Anna and Paul are planning a hiking trip. Anna says, I am so excited for Saturday. The weather forecast is perfect. Sunny and cool. Paul says, I know. I've already packed my backpack. I have water, snacks, and a map. Now, Anna wants to change the topic to a problem with her boots. Which transition does she use? Option A. Speaking of snacks? Option B. That reminds me. Option C. But let's think. If she says, speaking of snacks, she would continue talking about food. That doesn't fit the boots. If she says, that reminds me, it could work if the packing reminded her of her equipment. If she says, but, it introduces a problem. But I am worried about my boots. This fits best if she is contrasting Paul's readiness with her lack of readiness. However, that reminds me is also a very strong candidate for a random thought popping up. Let's say she chooses, that reminds me. It is a classic way to introduce a concern that isn't directly related to the sentence before, but related to the general activity. Anna, that reminds me, I need to buy new boots. My old ones have a hole in them. Now, Paul wants to transition from the boots to the idea of going shopping together. Which transition does he use? Option A. Anyway. Option B. Why don't we? Option B is a suggestion. Why don't we go to the mall tonight? This is a transition of action. It moves from talking about a problem to solving it. Paul. Why don't we go to the mall tonight? We can get you some new ones and grab dinner. Then Anna wants to transition to a completely different subject, her job. Which transition? Option A. By the way. Option B. So. By the way is perfect for introducing an unrelated topic. Anna. By the way, I forgot to tell you about my boss. He actually gave me a raise today. Did you see how that works? Every transition had a specific function. That reminds me brought up a related concern. Why don't we? Moved to a solution. By the way, introduced a random, exciting fact. By understanding the function of the transition, you understand the logic of the conversation. You stop hearing a wall of sound and start hearing the structured, organized flow of ideas. To wrap up our deep dive into topic changes, I want to focus on active listening. Staying oriented isn't just about hearing the words. It is about watching the speakers. If you are watching a video or speaking face-to-face, look for physical cues. Often, before someone says, by the way, they might take a breath, look away, or shift in their chair. These physical movements telegraph a topic change. They are the nonverbal, blinking lights. If you are on a phone call, listen for the pause. A silence often precedes a major topic shift. The speaker is mentally filing away the old topic and picking up the new one. Let's do one final long dialogue to end our session. This will be the ultimate test. We have two friends, Leo and Zoe, catching up after a long time. I want you to visualize the path they take. Start with work arrow move to relationships. Arrow move to a tangent about a movie arrow return to work arrow end with a plan. Leo sat opposite Zoe in a bustling tea shop. It feels like forever since we sat down like this, he said. How is the new job going? You started last month, right? Zoe stirred her tea, her face lighting up. Yes, it's been a month. It's intense, Leo. The learning curve is steep. I'm working with a team of designers, and they are all so talented. I feel like I have to run just to keep up, but I love the energy. It's so much better than my old office. Leo nodded. That sounds great. A challenge is good, You were so bored at your last place. It's good to see you excited again. Zoe took a sip. I am. Although the hours are long. I barely have time for anything else. I haven't been to the gym in weeks. Anyway, how is your life? I heard a rumor that you and Sarah are back together. Leo looked down at his cup, a shy smile forming. News travels fast. Yes, we are. We've been seeing each other for about 2 weeks. It's different this time. We are taking it slow. Zoe reached across the table and touched his hand. Leo, that's wonderful. I'm happy for you. You two always had a special connection. Speaking of connections, did you ever finish watching that mystery series we talked about? The one with the detective in London? Leo laughed. I did, and I cannot believe who the killer was. I did not see that twist coming at the end. The actor who played the brother was incredible. Zoe nodded vigorously. I know. I screamed at the TV when I watched it. But wait, I'm getting distracted. Back to your job for a second. Are you still looking for a transfer to the Berlin branch? You mentioned that months ago. Leo's expression turned more serious. Actually, I put in the request last week. I should hear back by Friday. If I get it, that changes things with Sarah, obviously. Long distance isn't easy, but it's a huge career move. Zoe sat back. Wow, big decisions. Whatever happens, I support you. Before we leave, I have a favor to ask. It's completely unrelated. Leo smiled. Name it. Zoe grinned. Can you look at my laptop? It's been making a weird noise ever since I dropped it. I know you're good with computers. Leo closed his notebook. Sure thing. Bring it over this weekend. We can look at it while we have coffee. Let's analyze this final journey. 1. Start. Zoe's new job. Topic: work. 2. Transition. Anyway, Leo used this to shift the focus from Zoe's busy schedule to Leo's personal life. Topic: relationship. 3. Transition. Speaking of connections, Zoe used the keyword connection regarding the relationship to jump to a TV show about connections/mystery. Topic: TV show tangent. 4. Transition. But wait, I'm getting distracted. Back to your job. This is the explicit return. Zoe noticed the tangent and manually steered the ship back to the main topic of Leo's career. Topic: work/career move. 5. Transition. Before we leave. The final phase, transition. Used to introduce a favor and close the interaction. Topic: the favor, conclusion. This dialogue had everything. We saw the anyway pivot, the speaking of tangent, the back to correction, and the before we leave conclusion. If you followed that, you are fully oriented. You know exactly where the conversation went. You didn't get lost in the TV tangent because you knew it was a tangent. You didn't get lost in the relationship talk because you saw the transition. Listening is an active sport. You have to pay attention to the structure, not just the words. The words are the bricks. The transitions are the mortar. Without the mortar, the wall falls down. Without the transitions, the conversation is just noise. As we finish today's practice on English in fluency, I want you to do one thing today. Watch a short video, maybe a vlog or an interview. Listen specifically for one word. Just one. Listen for the word so. Count how many times they use it to start a new sentence or change the topic. You will be surprised how often it appears. Then, listen for anyway. Then, by the way. Train your ear to hunt for these signals. Once you start hearing them, your comprehension will skyrocket. You will stop translating in your head and start flowing with the speaker. Thank you for joining me, Alex, today. I hope you feel more confident about navigating English conversations. Remember, getting lost is okay. It happens to everyone. But now, you have the map. You have the road signs. You just need to keep your eyes open. If you found this helpful, please make sure to subscribe to English in Fluency. Hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And leave a comment below telling me which transition phrase is the most difficult for you to catch. I read your comments, and I love hearing from you. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and stay fluent. Goodbye, everyone.